The question is going to be what people even want to do. The lighter people, they're not showing. They're not here. This weekend. So I think I knew what I was doing. Your pen said no.
He's not answering. Yeah, he was on the hotel. Until 3 o'clock. I don't know. He's not answering. Let's ask him. Things that you guys it's not like I had this letter.
It's not like you're taking it home and
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Will you please join us for a salute to the flag? And pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order in line with the Borough Supervisors' long-standing policy of open government and in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. advise you that adequate notice of this regularly scheduled meeting was sent to the Asbury Press and other local newspapers on November 15, 2019. In each instance, the date, time, and location of this meeting were provided in the notice. This meeting is open to the public. We'll have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Berthold.
Here.
Councilman Mueller. Councilman Kelly is absent. Councilman Epstein.
Here.
Councilman Rooney.
Here.
Councilman Schwartz.
Here.
We will start our meetings with remarks from the audience. So we have a number of ordinances on our agenda tonight. So if you're here to comment on one of the ordinances, there'll be a public hearing on each individual ordinance this evening. So if you're here about the ordinances, there'll be time for comment on those. But we're open to the general remarks from the public, and if anybody would like to be heard on any issue, now's your time. Hello, Chris.
Chris Capello, 370 Ocean Avenue. Roger, 356. What's that?
All the paperwork has been filed for the full judgment, the MDU judgment. That should be returned on December 27th. When I get confirmation back from the court on the date, I will let you know. I have your email. I'll let you know that,
just a quick question. What does that mean? The judgment comes back December 27th?
It means there'll be an enforceable judgment against her for our costs and mandating that she clean up.
And then how long will that take before work? Do we get a court date after that, or no?
No, that'll be in lieu of court date. We actually agree with judgment. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we filed affidavits and certifications with the motion. So hopefully the court will just enter a judgment on our behalf, and we can enforce it.
Thank you.
Well,
Any other remarks from the audience?
I have one.
Hello, Tom.
How you doing, Mayor Dina? Nice to see you. It's Tom Larky from One Beach Way at Seabright. It's something that my family and I called a few times about since we put the sewers in there back before Sandy. They just don't work, the water comes up, there's no flapper valve, it doesn't have to be a giant storm tide and boom. This has to be right, it doesn't even come over the beach, it just floods the road. So I'm just wondering, we've called, sent pictures several times, I was wondering if anyone's ever going to do anything about it. Who designed it too? Get your money back. There's no flapper. Call Jackie, get her on the phone.
Well,
Mayor,
yeah, I'll let Josie tell.
The council heard you guys loud and clear. They appropriated funds to apply for a CAFRA permit that we need to extend that line out into the water further because it fills up a little bit with sand and debris. So the money was appropriated. The engineer was chosen to do the CAFRA permit. The CAFRA permit has been applied for and we're waiting for a response from DEP.
Yeah. So there's a design, what you're going to do?
They want to extend it, off the top of my head, Tom, 20 or 30 feet further out so that it doesn't be able to back up that way. And then some sort of device will be put on the end of the pipe.
Because it didn't happen before you put that in. This happens when it's really not a flood situation. It's just doesn't even come over the beach, which is not 4 or 5 feet high. It just comes up and goes right into our yard. It floods. Sometimes it floods almost up to normandy.
But council did hear your dad, and we talked to your dad, and they appropriated the money. We didn't have money in this year's budget. We figured that we would get the money. We approved the engineer's applying for the CAFRA permit to extend it.
Oh, that's good. He keeps bringing up something too. There was supposed to be money for a bulkhead. There was a bulkhead there, and I know just a little section of bulkhead is not going to be very good, but there was money to put that bulkhead back, and that went somewhere.
Well, it really didn't. We heard the residents loud and clear. There were some that did not want the bulkhead there.
Was it the Democratic vote? Was it just
There was no vote. There was no vote.
Else?
I think council just decided at the time, and it's been some time, to eliminate that out of our 5 or 6 bulkhead project that we went forward with.
I don't know why they put it there, but it seemed one thing that happens since it's not there is people drag their boats over there, and it kind of wears down the sand, so that makes a channel for the water to come through. Like, unless you bulkhead the whole river, it's not going to really help that much. But so that was those are my thoughts, and tell the family that if they live long enough, they'll see the road fixed. Thanks, take care.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Any other remarks from the audience this evening? First up is our consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda. Can I make a motion to remove, to separate 178, 2019 from the consent agenda?
So,
178, 2019.
And I'd like to point out on 182, 219, that we had to move $25,000 more in the engineering last year, and $35,000 more in solid waste, which ties into this ordinance that we're trying to pass, because get rid of garbage is costing more and more, and get rid of recycling costs more than get rid of regular garbage. So, the more that we get rid of single-use plastics.
Were you
cut down on the garbage.
only 182 or?
No, he was-
Well, I mean, it's a comment.
So, we have a
To
point
point
of
out
order.
that when we had to move money around for solid waste and engineering money.
Councilman, yeah, do you want to?
I'll make a
change your
motion to
motion
approve the consent agenda with the exception of 178-2019, which will hold until after the.
We got a motion and a second on the consent agenda, everything except resolution 178, 2019. Mr. Keeler.
Councilman Herzog.
Yes.
Councilman Keeler.
Yes.
Councilman Kelly. Councilman Weinstein.
Yes.
Councilman Rooney.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
So now we'll take resolution 178, 2019 separately. Is there a discussion on that item, or just you want to just vote on it separately?
I'm assuming that this is for the second cell tower property.
No, this is the third
This is the third
user
section.
on the.
We have to put it out in order to get the 3 towers in the one tower.
Okay, so this is all for that one tower?
Yes.
Correct.
Nothing to do with the second tower.
I just wanted to clarify that.
That's one too.
Do you want to make a motion to remove that one?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Councilman Herzog.
Yes.
Councilman Keeler.
Yes.
Councilman Weinstein.
Yes.
Councilman Rooney.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
Moving on to ordinances, we have tonight the public hearing for ordinance number 22, 2019, also known as the salary ordinance. This basically sets lists out all possible positions in the borough and lays out possible salaries between 0 and a top number, and then individual salaries are set by ordinance and council vote. This just creates a menu of possibilities.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Councilman Herzog.
Yes.
Councilman Keeler.
Yes.
Councilman Weinstein.
Yes.
Councilman Rooney.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
Public will speak for ordinance number 22, 2019, regarding salaries.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Councilman Herzog.
Yes.
Councilman Keeler.
Yes.
Councilman Weinstein.
Yes.
Councilman Rooney.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
And then need a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Councilman Herzog.
Yes. Yes.
Councilman Weinstein.
Yes.
Councilman Rooney.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
And just so members of the public are aware, individuals are appointed to their positions and salaries set each by individual resolution, and those typically happen at the borough reorganization meeting, which is the first meeting in January. All right, second public hearing is ordinance number 23, 2019, also known as the plastics ordinance. So we have amendments to chapter 150, packaging practices uniform, and there was some discussion and an ordinance introduced at our last meeting. So now we need a motion to open a public hearing on this ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Councilman Herzog.
Yes.
Councilman Keeler.
Yes.
Councilman Weinstein.
Yes.
Councilman Rooney.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
Does anybody in the public wish to be heard on the proposed ordinance for single-use plastics?
I just have a quick question. Does that go with, I've only seen it a couple of times, people like those lanterns, when somebody passes away, it's like a spiritual thing. It goes over the ocean.
Balloons are included in the ordinance.
No,
That's
so I don't know if those account as balloons. They light a fire and they float up over the.
They're Chinese lantern and they're made out of.
That's different fire code.
It's already against fire code.
Oh, okay. I don't see it that many times, but I've seen it in this town. I just thought.
Yeah, so let's hear from some people who are impacted by this.
Hey, Tim C. Falco from Tom's Tavern Tap. And we're for this ordinance, we think it's a great thing, but we're just trying to get some more understanding about exactly how this is going to impact us as a business, especially. The straws are pretty self-explanatory, we get that, they have many options for plastic straws, that's easy. Our to-go containers are heavy-duty plastic. I really consider them single use, but I don't know if they really are single use. I bring them home, I wash them, I store my food in them, I know many other people do. So how is that defined as exactly single use?
I said, I'm gonna let Councilman Lexstein handle this one, because he wrote the ordinance.
Well, we would not consider that to be a single use. I know what you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and we don't consider that that is specifically exempted from the ordinance.
Okay.
Those type of take-home containers.
And you were the bags that we use?
Not.
Okay, so we do use a plastic bag. It does specifically say on the bag, please do not throw me away. I can be used many, many times. That's word for word what it says on a plastic bag. It is a high quality plastic. I mean, I keep them over. But according to this, it says it has to be like machine washable. Do you think, Charlie, think our bag would be?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the bag. I think that would not,
It wouldn't cost
that wouldn't
more.
work.
It's not that
The
very
ordinance says plastic carry-out bags.
so that would
So that would not be allowed.
not be allowed.
Would not be allowed.
No.
Okay, so that leads to my next question.
That's what I meant to say.
Which,
That's, I think.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
those bags, they're branded, we purchase 6 months at a time. What kind of grace period are?
Well, I spoke to Tommy, as, you know, this doesn't take place till next month, and obviously, if you
6
know,
months and 10,000.
you have other locations, so, I mean, you might have to move those bags to,
So this is.
we don't want you to throw them out.
This is gonna
but-
adapt in 3 weeks, this is gonna be enforced.
Well, you know,
So you're gonna, that's no time, just.
Well,
It
it
hasn't
been announced over.
In fairness, we did announce to all businesses over the course of the summer. We actually had a meeting, actually the pre-summer. We sent out notices to every single business in town, invited them to a meeting where we met with them. Some businesses did come, other businesses did not. I don't believe your business
No,
did
they're
not.
not.
But your business did receive notice that this was in the works. And many other businesses did come to the meeting. It was the mayor here.
Okay,
So it's not like this is just something sprung up.
we will work with everyone.
okay.
There's no doubt. I mean, this is not something that we're trying to put on somebody to cost them money and, you know, to throw
I
away.
know that New York last year did it with Styrofoam first last year, and it was public, so they gave us 6 months to find new vendors and find new products and everything like that, so what did that find? So show programs.
Well, I think it's important to note that in April, the council adopted a resolution, an ordinance rather, putting a moratorium on the enforcement of an ordinance that had been adopted many years ago that prohibited plastic. So it's been known for 7 or 8 months what the council intended to do, and always the intention that there was going to be an ordinance put in place before January 1. So any business in town has known since at least April of that intention. So it's not a 3-week notice, it's really a 7 or 8 month notice.
Okay. And who's going to be enforcing these?
Well, code enforcement and the police.
Code enforcement and police, right? Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Frank Bain, Bain's Hardware. We're certainly not against the ordinance. We just ordered 10,000 reusable bags. Not an issue. I just want to use the stuff we have. You know, I mean, we buy the stuff, we don't buy 3 weeks worth, you know. So if we have 2 months worth, it's 2 months worth. We'll move forward with new stuff, but I don't want to throw away what I have.
What Tommy's just saying, you're asking for a longer phase-in period.
Yeah, just to pay a grace period. We understand it's coming. We're not against it, you know.
You think myself?
Absolutely.
No problem.
Can we give them, can we amend section 4 to give them a phase-in period?
If council, that's what council
You know,
wants.
one of the issues in looking for replacement, the industry is not keeping up with, as the ordinance are changing so quickly. And whether it's 7 months, 8 months, the industry is not adapted completely to the new one. You know, my wife located a guy who's coming direct, you know, from China to the ordinance. But, you know, once again, you have about 10,000 bags. Luckily, we could use 10,000 bags. But yes, we'll be out by summer.
We will do that. So those, the 10,000 bags, how long does it take to go through them?
That's my business.
I'm just saying, like, it's nice to know you're not gonna be ordering them anymore. That's a lot of bags, right? I mean, so that,
No, that's
that's a good move for the town.
That's the minimum order.
I wanna know your business.
Well, I'm done.
Just state your name and address for the record, sir.
Fatima, 11 to 7-Eleven. We also have tons of bags, straws, plastic food containers that we obviously won't sell through for the next 3 weeks. So we can also phase through what we have and not order more.
What is a reasonable phase-in period for you, Fatima?
Honestly, I wouldn't know. You know, one day is busier than the next day. So at least maybe an extra month or so. I'm not sure whatever you're giving everybody else.
Well, everybody, if there's going to be a change to the ordinance, it's going to apply to everybody. It's not-
Yeah, I understand, but if you're gonna give any Tommy's or Mr. Bean's extra time to finish their stuff, then.
So what we're looking at is maybe delaying the implementation of or the enforcement of the ordinance to give everybody a chance to phase out their old products.
Yeah, okay.
That's also what I'm hearing to the council.
Christine Rodriguez, Donna Missouri, former we're doing everything that was put in, the paper straws upon request, the signs, our takeout containers, all paper, biodegradable. The only thing is we're using plastic cups. It would be very hard for us not to use, and we're using paper for coffee and soft drinks. It would be very hard for us not to use a clear plastic cup with the heat and alcohol. It would just degrade. No cups.
Cups are actually exempted from the ordinance, so you're.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay. But otherwise, we're up to date. Thank you.
Let's state your name and address for the record.
1120 Ocean Avenue. I just have questions like, this is a container we use for sushi, is that can be used?
Yeah, that's why I had one.
See, the other one is much heavier, right?
Yeah, and this one is
That's
heavier,
reusable, I don't know,
it's recycling.
Listen, in my mind, the second one, I don't have a problem. That's probably what Zach Cummings was talking about also.
Yeah, that's similar to.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. I think those are okay. There's a weaker one, I don't know. Does that fall apart?
It's all fall apart, it's just pretty good.
Look, let's be really clear. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're just, and I want to make that, and we really
Yeah,
took
we
a
just
lot
want to
of.
make sure it's low, like.
Well, it does say recycle.
Yeah, it's a recycles and then like six pounds or something. So I have a 6 here.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Just want to make sure it's like.
If it's a six recycle, it means it can be recycled with general recyclables. It's ones and twos cannot, they're just basically trash, because they can't be recycled, but anything, I think 5, 6, and 7s, I believe, can be recycled.
We looked into it. Everything is graded. It's called a PET score. So number 1, we're using number 1. That means it's using the most recyclable material that goes into it, and it is the most easily recyclable. And so there's like a score for plastic.
So I have the numbers backwards. higher the number, the more recyclable.
What's your thoughts?
You know, I think everybody's missing the point. The whole point is we should start using things that we reuse. Go into the grocery store with a reusable bag.
This one has
You know, go into you give out bags when people take out a bag, charge them $1. When they come back and get it again, they use it again. We're trying to get rid of garbage. That's the whole point. I mean, I don't want to hurt any business, but if it was my business and I know a little bit about marketing, I would market myself. Everything I use is either recyclable or paper. And I would charge, you know, if I had to charge an extra 10 cents, people don't mind paying it. I was in the store to get some toothpaste and stuff, and I asked for a bag, and the girl points over there, €1 for that bag. I buy a reusable bag. It's just the way, you know, the way it should be. You know, we don't, you know, I hate to pick on 7-Eleven, but I mean, I went in for a candy bar and she hands me a bag. No, I don't want a bag. We need to get rid of that stuff.
The whole saying is this little one, the small one is done.
I don't think that's good. And with the ordinance specifically says multi-use containers are okay. So that other one that you look at, that's multi-use.
And one thing you gotta keep in mind is we're getting ahead of the curve on this. Eventually the state's gonna come in, and the state's gonna do something, and I mean, we're years away from that, most likely. But, I mean, it's coming down the pipe. We're a beach community, we're right on the water. Every little bit that we can help to keep the stuff from blowing into the ocean helps. I mean, a lot of our traffic, a lot of our garbage is produced in the summer. We get overflowing garbage cans out here that our beach crews work and DPW work every day, multiple times a day, trying to keep those things clean. Sometimes we get wind, that stuff blows in the ocean. So, you know, I mean, a lot of your businesses, you're providing food to people that go off to the beach. And they're sitting on the beach. You gotta think about that. That stuff's gonna end up in a garbage can. It may not end up in a recycling can. It may end up blowing into the ocean. So think about that when you're thinking about the type of stuff that you're trying to reuse. And as much as you can do, we'd appreciate it. And that's the whole thing. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're just trying to keep this stuff out of the ocean.
Yeah, I know. I understand. I just want to make sure that we can use it. I just not be to order it anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with them, and I think the thinner one is probably not.
Just as a note, food in starting January, will no longer have plastic bags. So they're opting by reusable bags.
Right.
Well, we just specific language from the ordinance. It says that it can be utilized for more than a single serving. It's okay.
A lot of your heavier packages, I know I put leftovers in and bring them to work the next day. I'm reusing it. I'm using it twice.
And also,
I throw them in the washing machine, dishwasher, wash.
And also some of it has to
So the question is, if we change the date of effect of the ordinance, is that a material change? Okay, well, I would say it's not. It is a material change, okay. So.
The grace period until.
No, but then we'd have to deduce it again today.
No, we just have to amend it and the advertising amendment at the next meeting
We can adopt it. Now that it's on here, if that's what we change.
I'm not sure that everybody's been heard. Gary, did you want
about the cups, since the cups are excluded.
I think Councilman Schwartz is hitting it on the head, though. I think we're missing the point. I said, like, we have Cindy Ziff here from Clean Ocean Action. Clean Ocean Action was started in 1984. In 1986, my dad was mayor, and they banned plastics in the borough of Seabright. And, here we are, 33 years later, right? And we're still not really getting it. We make our living off of this beach. We should be the leaders. This is our thing, man. This is Seabright. We should be like saying, Seabright's got it. They're nailing it. Let's go to Seabright. Let's talk to Seabright. Let's see how they did it. Not like, how can we get around it? This is our time, man. Let's get it. 2019's over, 2020's coming, and let's do it right.
Cindy, did you have anything about it?
Yes, I did, but I didn't want to, there's some other folks from
Just a
town.
quick comment, Tom, for the Beachway and Seabright Town Board. I'm wondering if the ordinance doesn't go far enough, you know? What I read is like the things they find in the oceans, mainly plastic bottles, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, those water bottles, that's being those too. Because I don't know how much, if you quantify plastic bags and forks, I don't know how many turtles or seagulls those are being filled. Those plastic bottles is what they caught most of. So I say, why don't we ban the sale of those in Seabright? What is ocean action?
Go for it. Go for it. So thank you, Councilman, for a great introduction, and it's wonderful to be here in Seabright. As Charlie indicated, Clean Ocean Action was born and raised its early years right here in Seabright, and that's where we got our guts and our efforts to work to stop so much of the ocean dumping and ocean pollution that faced our coast at the time. And plastics was a huge part of that. I mean, I did bring a headline in 1988, Smithsonian had a magazine that saying plastics reaps a grim harvest in the oceans of the world. And again, that was 1988. And it's been decades, and we've done nothing. And the ocean is filling with plastics. And scientists are now saying that by 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. And the plastic is getting into the fish, and then we're eating the fish. And the harm that is coming from the microplastics as these plastics break down. Every little bit of plastic that ever is either mistakenly or by accident or on purpose been put in the ocean is still out there today. It's getting smaller and more bite-sized. And there are millions of animals that are suffering the consequences of that we don't see. They're dying out in the ocean below the sea surface that we don't see. Occasionally one will wash up and we'll hear the tragic story, or we'll see the tragic story of it being entangled in plastics, or its stomach will be impaled with some type of plastic, or will just be filled with some type of plastic and the animal will starve to death. One of the recent ones that got me was a young sperm whale, male sperm whale that floated up in Spain, that literally from the distance, the photograph looked like a giant plastic black bag on the beach. It was so emaciated. And the DNA of that animal to persevere, to live long enough to starve itself to that degree, that DNA was lost. And that's a species that is on the endangered list and threatened list. So we are causing great harm by this miracle material that we created. And there are good purposes for plastic in the medical field or in cars, but single-use plastics, we did without them long ago, we can do without them today. And just to give you a couple of numbers, from Seabright right here, we do a beach cleanup twice a year. It's called Beach Sweep. It's great to see so many familiar faces. Single-use utensils in just 6 hours, once in the spring, 3 hours in the spring and 3 hours in the fall, so that's just a little over 6 hours. 226 utensils, again, just 6 hours with, a handful of volunteers. Plastic bags, 600 plastic bags, and just 2 short periods during single-use plastic straws, 2,151. And you just multiply that by 365, and you get to see the magnitude. Polystyrene foam, 770. And then plastic pieces, over 4,000 pieces. So we are having a profound impact. And this is, as Councilman Rooney said, let Seabright stand out as a shining star. You've got a great effort here by including so many items in one ordinance. That's unique. That hasn't been done. I have Peter Blair here. He's our policy attorney. He's been with us just over a year, and the ocean has a big smile on its face that to defend the ocean. But I do want to thank your leadership in putting forth an ordinance that has so many items in it. We do have some suggestions that Peter's going to go over with you. But again, you know, it would be incredibly powerful for this town, who is the comeback kid, right? I mean, you just come back from Superstorm Sandy, which really pelted you hard to stand out as a shining leader for all of the coastal towns on an issue of such profound impact on the marine environment. So can I turn it to Peter? Would that be okay?
Hi, as Cindy said, I'm Peter Blair, I'm the attorney for Clean Ocean Action. So we're very happy that you guys will go over this ordinance. As Cindy said, it's an extremely important topic. So just running through the aspects of the ordinance on single-use plastic bags. We're slightly concerned with the definition of reusable bags. You have it allowing for single-use plastic bags that are thicker than 2.25 mil. This was the standard for a while, which is probably where it was getting taken from. However, it's been shown that what this does is retailers use these single-use plastic bags that are now defined as reusable, and people are conditioned to continuously use them as disposable. So it creates a problem if you're essentially having a thicker plastic bag that people are using. This is what was brought up by Common Tavern, that what is 2.25 mil is one question, and then people aren't aware of what could be reusable. Under a definition such as this, a lot of bags could be considered reusable when in fact they're single use. So what you're doing is essentially creating thicker plastic bags that are going to take longer to break down in the marine environment, cause more harm to marine life if they enter the marine environment, and if they're disposed of properly, they'll just take longer to dispose.
So what are those recommendations?
We have recommendations, which is to ban all single-use film, so all plastic film bags. We have definitions which we can use. In terms of changing the definition of reusable, we have language as well, which would be, specifically manufactured and defined for multiple reuse, is made of cloth or other material not of plastic. We can share this with you if you'd like.
I would ask you if you have those, send them over to Borough Hall, send them to me, I'll give them that card to the meeting.
Okay.
So we can talk about incorporating them in the work.
But it has to be done next year though.
Right. Yeah, we can't do it now, but.
Okay. On balloons, I think the prohibition should be expanded. Currently, it's only the release of balloons into the atmosphere when on the beach. We think that this isn't correct, that it should be anywhere throughout the borough. Obviously, anywhere that they get released is first and foremost littered. Second, the wind catches it. If it is released into the air, it's likely going to end up in the marine environment regardless of the point of the release. Many other jurisdictions have released the have restricted the intentional release of balloons. We don't think it should be limited to the beach. And then finally, for policy.
Any beach, so instead of saying released from any beach located in the borough, we'll just say any
Anywhere
balloon
within the
released from the borough in your recommendation?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm Janet Paul Center Street. For that, I mean, I would think that my biggest concern would be any real estate or places that have utilized balloons to attract attention should definitely be stopped, because often they get left out or they get left up, and I mean, then they just, you can't say, whoops, I didn't know it was going to go to the ocean. So sort of anywhere that's like attached outside might be something you want to include. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Thank you.
That's a good one.
The Clean Ocean Action has directed recommendations previously focused on that specific issue, which I can also send over, on leaving tethered balloons unattended.
Is that what
Tethered balloons unattended.
Unattended tethered balloons.
Yes. And then finally, for polystyrene foam containers, I think this has come up multiple times. If there's confusion over what exactly this means, the clarifying language is that this ordinance shall not be read prohibiting cups or containers which may be utilized for more than a single serving. Who's to say? Is kind of the question. The code enforcement, will they have to do an individual determination at each restaurant? How are the people who are responsible for enforcing this, customers who are taking these products with them, and most importantly, the restaurants that are buying these products, how are they to know exactly what is covered or not? We would recommend creating a stronger definition which clearly states what this is. examples could be, you know, banning things that aren't readily recyclable, therefore you're only allowing, as we talked about, 1 and 2 containers, which can be recycled or reused because they are that bigger plastic. Those are the recommendations we have. I can answer those questions.
Peter, take my card if you would, and send those to the land road.
I have a quick question. Is this something that they can use besides plastic forks and that? Is there like another product? Like,
Yeah, they have
restaurants can have.
They have soy products or plant-based products that are they're plant-based plastics. They break down and recycle. They'll break down, recycle, and go back into.
So like straws.
Yeah, they're called green plastics. They're basically plant-based plastics. They're not real good for hot foods, but they're you know, for in general, they're much better. They are getting much better than they used to be, so they're definitely there.
Which the alternatives to a lot of these items are getting continuously better. We do caution people against using biodegradable plastics. It's essentially a greenwash term, which doesn't mean much. It means that there's some type of plant-based material in it, but it's still predominantly plastic, and it will break down the same way plastic does. And we do have recommendations on that as well.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard on this ordinance? Anybody else want to offer comments on the ordinance?
I make a motion to close the public.
Second.
Councilman Herzog?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler? Councilman Weinstein?
Yes.
Councilman Rennie?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
So what do you guys want to do?
I want you to have a longer phase-in period for the businesses personally.
I think.
And I think the Clean Ocean Action's recommendations on clarifying the definitions are important.
But if we do that, the only point is that it's not adopted until next year then.
Well, I think we should just add in there that you got until May 1st or so.
So it's already been advertised once, so process-wise, if you make any changes that are considered by our attorney to be substantive, which he just said he considers these to be substantive, you have to reintroduce the ordinance and you have to start over.
Or do we have to introduce, because that's what amended tonight?
You do and we still publish.
We have another public hearing, that's.
Yeah, we have a public hearing on the
amended ordinance.
So the question is, can we get this in before the first?
The only way to do that is to do the amendment tonight.
Yeah, because we have a meeting.
We have a meeting in 2 weeks.
Well, we have to advertise.
We have to advertise. No, it is possible.
Could you amend to include the grace period or the phase-in period tonight, and then amend the clarification of the definitions once you have a chance to look at
Which we
them?
have to do next.
We do that in January.
Yeah.
I would suggest we do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because we can amend it and make changes next for the.
Sure, to do it in January. And you're going to be in a grace period, and whatever grace period you decide tonight, it could be in January.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So, this gives us time to receive and talk about the recommendations that Clean Ocean Action might offer.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they sound reasonable.
What is a reasonable phase-in? Given the first quarter of the year, is that right?
April. May 1st?
I like John's May 1st, fine.
May 1st, everybody.
I'm on May 1st. Yep, May 1st.
And it will take effect May 1st, so you will have to have all.
Yeah, that gives us enough time to source and bring a new product and go through what we have.
And there are going to be clarifications in the definitions that we're going to re-advertise. So keep your eyes open for that and do come in and make some comments on it or something.
We'll make sure we're sending copies, just like we did to heads up that this was happening.
Sorry, I have one quick question. Is it garbage, like a plastic garbage bag, like you use every day plastic garbage bag, is that considered a reusable bag or still having to?
We need them, but it's not covered.
Black bags? It's not covered. No, I just want to make sure.
The question is, we did get we received a letter from Giglio's who's requesting an exempt, they're claiming that they can only put frozen bait in plastic bags. So they're asking for an exemption from that part of the ordinance for bait shops. So they basically say they can't.
I think they should offer reusable containers.
I agree. Cindy, can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I can comment on that.
Okay.
I like the idea of reusable. We will just say that of the 46 ordinances that have been passed in New Jersey on single-use plastic bags, there are a handful of them that have run into this problem, and they have specifically exempted bait bags.
Wet bait, not tackle or not other things, but the wet bait.
Yes.
Well, we can float the idea past Geek Release and see
So do you want to deal with that in the new year?
Yeah, let's deal with that in the new year.
All right, so someone will make a motion to.
I'll make a motion to amend section 4 of the ordinance so that this ordinance shall take effect on May 1st, 2020.
I second that motion.
Roll call.
Roll call on the amendment.
Okay, Councilman Berthold.
Yes.
Councilman Keeler.
Yes.
Councilman Lutz.
Yes.
Councilman Rennie.
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
So then we're going to have a revised, we're going to have a new public hearing on this ordinance on, what's the next meeting date?
On the amendment.
On the amendment on December 17th. So we'll do this all over.
The only public hearing will be on that amendment.
Right.
We'll be on the rest of the work.
Okay.
Public hearing on the amendment December 17th.
Because that's going to stop you from getting.
So we're kicking the can down the road.
To December 17th.
4 months.
One more thing.
No, sir, just give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name's Darius Ardella. I live in Aberdeen, so I'm just representing 7-Eleven. And the question I had was just regarding our straws. We have specific straws for our Slurpees and for our Big Gulps with different sizes. What? Yeah, I mean, there's large straws, small straws. They really don't make those. It's not a specific straw. Would there be any kind of exemption?
Not with straws. I mean, listen, this is coming. And the state's going to do this sooner or later.
Right.
So we all have to, I know I just read articles about 7-Eleven getting rid of straws in Asia. I mean, it was all over the place. I just read, so it's out there.
I think they asked.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is it's coming.
Well, I get what you're saying, but it's for, the ease of the customer. It's a big Slurpee cup, big straw. So you
No,
can't really fit
I
a small
totally
straw.
get it. Right now, it's straws and utensils on request.
Well, no straws.
No straws at all, just utensils. I thought you could request it.
Not straw.
So there could be no exemption with those specific straws, the specific
No
straws?
plastic, no plastic. Unless someone else would agree with me, no plastic straws.
No. I can't even believe he's asking.
I mean, like I said, they've got the not biodegradable, but the plant-based straws out there. They are available. They're a little bit more expensive, yes, but, I mean, like John said, the consumers aren't gonna, balk at a couple cents here and there on an increase that they're saying.
It's not about the money, it's about the size of the cup, it's this big.
Right, but I'm saying.
You don't make paper straws that
Yeah, where are you
big.
gonna get a paper straw that's this big?
Yeah,
That's gonna last as long as a big gulp.
It's also got a specific cut to it. That's, so it's easy.
I mean, we at 7-Eleven are all for it, we don't give people bags for small items unless they ask for it.
Right, well-
I've actually declined for multiple bags, because they want to split their stuff up, I tell them no. So, we're not against it, and it's just a specific straw, I don't drink them, I don't care. It's not for me.
What I would suggest you do is sometime between now and January, when we're going to introduce amendments to the ordinance, that you take a look and find out what's available out there.
Yeah, we already looking, and we already have a contact for bags, Mr. Dean gave us a contact for someone.
So I suspect they'll come up with something for you.
Cindy, have you run into other 7-Elevens anywhere with these ordinances
This
during
big
the past?
giant Slurpee straws.
She just said she can pick up 4,000 straws
Yeah.
in 2 hours.
No, I'm just asking if they run into, I have to run into that there are 7-Elevens in these other towns.
In any of the other, I don't think there's been an exemption in any of the towns, other than some other towns, and implemented some type of plastic ordinance. We'll look through the ones that are out there and see if there's one and bring it to you on the 17th, or share it with you when we share the rest of it.
So maybe you can let us know if you have anything in your research.
Sure.
Specifically about something. I can't imagine something slowly.
But I think what I think we hear tonight is a desire to not cause hardship to the businesses. And so to the extent that we can fulfill the intent of the ordinance and still work with you on in helping you with your business, I think the council is inclined to do that. But if not,
Now, how many straws did you say you picked up in 2 hours? Did you get
we picked
6 hours.
6 hours?
2,151.
You don't use a larger trucks.
Yeah, that's,
I mean,
I think that's the answer.
reasonable.
Just a closing remark, I want to thank the town so much. Congratulations, our kudos to you, and we're also grateful for you to consider additional amendments, and we'll share the information we have, and thank you.
okay, so now we have a public hearing on our next ordinance. Mr. McClellan, you want us to be here before we close the public hearing, or on here?
Can I talk about the plastic for a second?
All right.
I have no objection to the plastic, but
Mr. McClellan, just state your name and address for the record, please.
my business address is 1410 Ocean Avenue, Seawright. We own, among other things, Eventide Grill. I've talked to a lot of other vendors in town who give out plastic now. The biggest thing is, and we're least affected, but I think it's worth thinking about, this is something that's proposed to go into effect January 1st.
We just changed it to May.
I'm sorry?
We just changed it to May 1st.
That's all I want to know. Thank you very much.
Before you came in, there was much discussion. Moving on to our next public hearing, and this is a public hearing on capital ordinance number 24, 2019. This is funding for additional costs related to the building projects.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Is anybody in the audience wish to be heard on capital ordinance 24, 2019, and this is related to the building construction projects?
My name is Marcella Thompson. I live in 5 Treatments Lane. And I'm just curious, I know that you're providing funding for the extra expenses of the 2 buildings. But there's funding, where's the funding coming from? Is there going to be more taxes? Is there going to be more bond?
So this is actually, in my understanding, this is fully, everything was fully funded, and we have not exceeded the ordinance that was approved by, the funding levels that were approved by referendum. However, we've been paying rentals for trailers, etc., and those have all been charged, those costs have all been charged to the construction account. And so it's more of a, I should let the attorney, our administrator explain it better than I just did. But this is more about accounting.
The funding comes from FEMA for an insurance proceeds, which will be determined at the end of the project for the rental of the police trailers, the storage facilities where on South Street where the fire department and first aid are. When that's closed out, we would submit a project worksheet for the cost to FEMA. They will reimburse us. This is no additional cost and no additional expenditures on the building. It's all on the rentals and other insurance proceeds that we get at the end of the project when everything's closed out.
Because the project hasn't been finished yet, it's necessary to make a payment on anticipation notes, so we take money that we have already appropriated and make those payments. Doesn't increase the amount of debt, doesn't change the cost of the project.
Okay.
And that's for 24 and the next.
I figured it's.
Any other remarks from the audience, comments from the audience on capital ordinance?
Motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Councilman Herzog?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Weston?
Yes.
Councilman Rooney?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Councilman Herzog?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Weston?
Yes.
Councilman Rooney?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
We have a public hearing for capital ordinance number 25, 2019, and this is funding for additional costs relating to the East Pavilion.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Councilman Herzog? Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Weston?
Yes.
Councilman Rooney?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Anybody wish to be heard on capital ordinance number 25?
Seeing none, motion to close.
Hi, Janet Folsom Street. So you're saying that this amount was already appropriated and will be reimbursed? Is that what I'm understanding for the amount?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When do you expect the reimbursement?
Sometime in 2020,
So, but it will definitely be in 2020?
we expect to close the project out in 2020, yeah.
Okay, but there's no set time yet, just sometime?
Well, so.
I'm just trying to understand the process.
Well, it's a process. I mean, it's a process. Buildings have to be completed first. You know, the contracts have to be resolved, change orders have to be taken care of, resolved. And once that happens, certifications from FEMA, certifications from insurance companies, they do their review of that, and then they make payments. So it all takes time.
It's like
In your experience?
It's a lot, so
Right, but in your experience, I mean, how much more has to be done for this building before it's done? I mean, do you have a timeline on that?
We're working on closeouts and project worksheets from 2013 with FEMA, right? So it's kind of depends on them and their timetable. But as soon as we're ready, we start pushing for, let's get the paperwork going so that we can get our reimbursements.
And we have to show them all the canceled checks, paid vouchers, and everything before they close out the project and make the final determination. So it's really a product of when do you pay the last check and get that check back where you can put it in a document for FEMA, and then they determine the final amount. We're expecting 2020, and we're extremely hopeful for 2020 to close everything out. So I don't want to tell you exactly, but it's really a product of when do you pay the last check and show them the certificate of occupancy and all of those items before you get the final payment.
Okay, so just in your experience, it's less usually around a year? Because now I'm hearing 2013.
Well, that's the backlog of Sandy and working with 120 towns on project worksheets.
if I may, just so you understand, it doesn't really matter in the sense that, you know, we have borrowed money on what's known as bond anticipation notes. Okay? So we have to start to make payments now on the bond anticipation notes. So that process will continue. It doesn't change ultimately the amount of money that we're going to spend, or ultimately it doesn't change the appropriation, it doesn't change the bond amount. It's just a matter of when are we going to get that money back from the sources that we're getting the money back from.
Do we pay an interest on the amount of the bonded? I don't understand, that's why I'm asking.
It doesn't, what we're doing tonight has absolutely no effect on the bonding that was done for the bill.
So these are short-term notes, and then when everything is, all the projects are completed, they'll go out to market for permanent financing for all of it together and hopefully get an advantageous rate.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with nobody else, I will renew my motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Councilman Renzo?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Weston?
Yes.
Councilman Rooney?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
And I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Councilman Renzo?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Weston?
Yes.
Councilman
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
do in the closed session?
You will be able to vote there. Your meeting was right there.
Oh, and our final, yeah, I didn't put the information on that. Now we have our final capital ordinance 26, 2019, introducing this capital ordinance. This is for the acquisition of equipment for our fire department.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman Bartel,
Yes.
Councilman Keeler,
Yes.
Councilman Lexstein,
Yes.
Councilman Rooney,
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz.
Yes.
And the public hearing will be December 17th.
The closed session is listed on our agenda. We're going to forego closed session meeting and closed session. And so it said what?
What? Has one more meeting.
Let's
We do have a work. Meeting fill the house.
All in favor?